Kia ora koutou, and welcome everyone to the last session of eResearch 2026 Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm Maxime Rio from Earth Sciences New Zealand, and it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Andrea Goethals, who's...
Not keynote.
Sorry?
Not keynote.
Okay, invited speaker, who's Manager of Digital Preservation at the National Library of New Zealand and Archive New Zealand. And in addition of this role, she also chairs the International Internet Preservation Consortium Executive Board and was conference chair of the International Conference on Digital Preservation, IPRES 2025, which happened to be in the best city of the world, Wellington. And you will also find her name on multiple digital preservation standards and guidelines who are used internationally. Again, we are very lucky to have you here today, and please join me to give a warm welcome to Andrea.
Thank you, Maxime. Kia ora koutou, ko Andrea Goethals, toko ingoa. Today I'm going to share with you some of the very real challenges facing the National Library of New Zealand and Archives New Zealand, and how we're adapting organizationally our technical infrastructure and our use of AI. But before I do that, a pop quiz. How many of you, just show by raise of hands, think you know what the National Library of New Zealand does? Oh, quite a few, more than I expected. How about Archives New Zealand? A little less. Okay, that's okay. I've got a slide that kind of sums it up from my perspective. So my background is in computer science. I started working about 25 years ago in academic libraries, trying to solve the digital preservation problem that doesn't go away. I moved to New Zealand about 8 years ago and started working at the National Library of New Zealand. And it wasn't until I was working there that I kind of got to understand what a national library does. And so I fully appreciate that from the outside it can look kind of opaque. So I wanted to clear that up a little bit. Let's see. There we go. So the National Library of New Zealand and Archives New Zealand are both what we call national memory organizations. They're part of the public sector. They're part of the Department of Internal Affairs, or DIA. And they're mandated by law to collect, preserve, and provide access to, in the library's case, the cultural heritage of New Zealand, and in Archives New Zealand's case, the permanent government records. And and they do a lot of different functions, but from my perspective, coming from the digital preservation or data stewardship function, this is kind of the way I think about it. We preserve the nation's cultural heritage, the digital cultural heritage in what's called the National Digital Heritage Archive, or NDHA, and the permanent government records in the Government Digital Archive, or the GDA. And the third very large digital collection we have is called the New Zealand Web Archive. And a lot of people don't know this, but we've been taking a snapshot of the New Zealand web space annually since 2009. So it's a massive collection of everything that's been going on in the New Zealand web space since then. So we are a cultural heritage organization and part of the government. But I've been coming to eResearch, I think this is my third one, because I think that we have a lot of things in common. So we have these very large digital collections, and we provide services to researchers. The reason we have these collections is to provide them to researchers. So I think that we share some of the common challenges. But the caveat is that we have multi-year obligations, so we're legally mandated by law to preserve this content in perpetuity. And that's why I think our challenges are a bit amplified, even though they're similar. So these are our core challenges at the moment, and some of them might seem familiar to you as well. So basically, broadly, it's 3 buckets. So it's money, it's scale, and it's the disruptions going on right now. So I think you all can probably relate to that first one, operating in a constrained budget environment. And it's not like we can just stop doing our core services. So we basically have to learn how to adapt with less. Also, we have a growing digital collection. It doesn't stop collecting. I mean, it doesn't stop growing because we can't stop collecting. And at the scale that we're at, our storage is already unaffordable. We use private cloud at the moment, and we have a project to move off of it because it's too unaffordable for us. And lastly, there's a lot of disruptions going on right now. Obviously, we've heard a lot about it during this conference. So there is the AI acceleration. We've heard a lot about that, but there's also the arrival of hyperscale cloud in New Zealand, which is also a big change. I won't talk more about that first one because I think it's pretty obvious, but I'll show some graphs that illustrate some of the other challenges. So this is, our finance team asked me to do a 10-year storage forecast. They used to ask for 4 years, and now they're asking for 10 years. So where the question mark is, that's the split. So before that is the, actually, does this work? I thought it might work, but maybe not. Okay, so before the question mark are the actual numbers of our collection, 1 copy of the collection, and then there's a split. So 2 different predictions. The blue line is what I would expect to happen based on our past growth and what we know of what's happening with the collections. But there's another scenario that could happen, which is the orange higher growth line, which shows what could happen if we have unexpected digitization projects or larger acquisitions than we expected. So either growth scenario is feasible, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But the key point here is the text there on the bottom that it actually doesn't matter which way it goes because our storage is already unaffordable. This is another challenge for us, and I haven't heard this talked about at eResearch so far, but so the aggressive AI harvesting of digital resources. And this isn't a problem unique to us, it's actually happening internationally. It's a really big problem, especially with cultural heritage organizations, but with anyone who has large digital collections exposed on the web. So in order to continue to improve these LLMs, they need training data, and they're really hungry, and they're paying data brokers to just go out and get it. And this is costing us in a lot of different ways, as explained on the slide, but if you're interested in this problem, this URL, there is a really good one for describing the problem. And you can see it's called AI Bots Are Destroying Open Access. And the reason it says that is because a lot of institutions have no choice but to start taking their collections off the web just to survive because the bots are hitting us so hard. They have no other choice. So it's not a situation that most organizations want to be in. They've worked really hard to get their content up on the web, and you don't want to have to start taking it down because of these bots. This is a snapshot from my Teams chat from about a week ago, and I'll just read it. Updated tally, we had 6.57 million bot visits to our main sites show up in Google Analytics last month against 502,000 legit visits. So if anyone in your team has access to Google Analytics for any reporting, please make sure they know it's all pretty tainted at the moment. So this was from the person who looks after our Google Analytics, and it was to the group of digital managers. And you can see by the single thumbs up that it wasn't a surprise to anyone. This is commonplace now, and we're all just kind of used to it and tired of it. Here's some of our charts. These are from the library's online channels, and some of them might be familiar to you, like Papers Past, which is the top middle one, which is the digitized newspapers, or Digital Pacific, lower bottom, which is our gateway to the Pacific resources, or the REANNZ API, or the National Library website, which is the top left. In all these cases, the blue part of the graph are the bots, and the green parts are the actual users. And the situation is actually worse than it looks here, because these are the bots that actually passed the test of being human. So these are the ones that got past the firewall, past what we pay extra to filter these out. And it's also, all of these are running in AWS, so we're getting egress charges from this, and it's causing a lot of manual labor for people who have to look at this and figure out what to do about it, and even try to figure out which are human and which are not. And we rely a lot on reporting our statistics to show impact of our services, and this kind of prevents us from being able to do that, so it's a big problem. The National Library is fairly well resourced compared to a lot of other cultural heritage organizations, so you can imagine the problem for many of them is they can't even, begin to even look at their logs or figure it out or block it. So it's a really big problem internationally. Okay, so that was mostly the negative part of my presentation. You survived it, so we're going to move on to some more positive things, what we're doing in response. This one might be news to many of you. So the National Library and Archives New Zealand, the way it's said on my slide, I work for both of them. So before the government even started asking government agencies to start reducing their budgets and their staff, the National Librarian and the Chief Archivist had already been doing a process internally to try to work closer between Archives New Zealand and National Library. So we actually were in a good spot because we were ahead of the game. We weren't kind of forced to figure it out during a high pressure situation because we were already on that path of trying to figure it out. So this is the end result from my perspective. It's not an organizational diagram or anything like that. What it shows is that there's two separate institutions. They remain separate institutions, but a lot of the operational work is done together. And it's under shared leadership. So it's a joint leadership team that shares strategy, shares resources, et cetera. So the functions on, let's see if this works. No. The functions on the left, the regulatory functions, remain part of Archives New Zealand because that's specific to Archives New Zealand. That's what they need to do. They're mandated by law to regulate the government agencies. The functions on the right are specific to National Library. Things like the library sector leadership, the legal deposit, the Alexander Turnbull Library collections. So those remain kind of separate, but everything in the middle there, everything else in the organization is now shared between the two. And they're shared teams, so there are people working together that formerly worked for either the library or the archives, so now they're working together. This was a process that took a few years to design, and they involved the staff in doing it. So I think it was kind of a unique process compared to what happens with a lot of reorganizations where the staff don't get to be a part of it. And I actually think it puts us in a pretty good spot. So we now have a shared digital directorate where all the digital functions are together and they can kind of learn from each other and share experience, including the digital preservation, which is my group. And so yeah, I think it sets us up for being a bit more effective in delivering our services. We have 4 different strategies within this new organization, and one of them is the digital delivery strategy. And what this means is, even though historically we've been both kind of a physical and a digital organization, we're going forward. Digital is prioritized in terms of collecting, managing, and providing access to people. So we'll still continue to do all those analog physical things, but the attention, the focus is on the digital. And in all the strategic items, there's both an 18-month goal and then a 5-year goal. And the reason I mention this at all is because of the 18-month goal is to modernize our digital infrastructure. And it also means part of that is changing our storage infrastructure. So I like this because I think in a lot of organizations, the maintenance and the upgrade of the infrastructure is kind of seen as not as important and not related to the strategy. And here in this case, it's tied directly. We have to do this in order to become a digital-first organization. So what kinds of technical changes are we making? We're making both kind of tactical, shorter-term changes and then longer-term strategic changes. And I'll talk about the first ones first. So these are what we're calling the kind of the quick wins, the cost efficiencies. So these are things that are meant to buy us time as we plan the longer-term, bigger shifts. And our storage infrastructure is more expensive than any of our other technical infrastructure because we have so much data and it's fairly expensive storage. So that's what we concentrated on first. And what we discovered was that we do have a lot of content that we don't need to be storing. It's not part of our collections. So a good example is test data. We had so much test data that it wasn't, I think it wasn't apparent to the institution until we started looking into it and quantifying it and putting a cost next to it. When we started putting costs next to things, then people they pay attention. They say, oh, okay, yeah, we should do something about that. The second one there is about reducing the time that we store deleted content. And this might seem kind of like a weird concept. Why are you storing deleted content? The reason we do it is because we wanted to have an out in case people accidentally deleted something. That was really the main reason. We have these retention policies that are kind of just in case, somebody deleted something for the wrong reason. But it turns out that that use case didn't really pan out when we looked at it. The effect was that it was causing us to store content we intentionally deleted, didn't need for way longer than we needed to. I'll give you an example of probably the worst case was our web archive. We were testing a new feature. So somebody copied over an entire harvest for 1 year into the test environment just to see if it worked and then deleted it, right? So that was about 30 terabytes of content, which then got replicated to our other stores. So then we're storing 60 terabytes of this content. And in that case, there was a 7-year retention policy for intentionally deleted data, right? So yeah, that was a case where, it clearly wasn't intended for this. Let's find a way to get rid of it. And then also just what we found is pockets of people, for the right reasons, for convenience, for legacy reasons, storing copies of data that was already under preservation care in the repository. So they didn't actually need to be keeping another copy, but just over time, these workflows happened. So that was also identified as some place that we could get rid of it. And then reducing our whole of domain harvest scope. But in all of these cases, it wasn't easy for us to delete the data. We had to make the case to leadership that there was no risk in this. It's not related to our collections, and this is exactly how much we're going to save if we do it. And we also had to get staff on board, so I had to have a lot of conversations with people to get them to understand why we're doing this, why is it important, why do we need to change our workflows. So it all worked out once everybody understood. They were on board. And we're going through a similar process with our server infrastructure. These are some of my favorite charts. They're actually pretty simple, but I think they kind of tell the story. So this is the test data that we got rid of. And what is it? About 350 terabytes. But that's one copy. So it also gets replicated to another data center. So this is the amount of content that we deleted over a couple months. And this is the resulting cost savings from that. In our infrastructure, it's intentionally difficult to delete content for obvious reasons. We make it hard technically and policy-wise to delete content. So the two people on the slide, Kirsty Smith and Jan Hutar, I wanted to give credit to them because they put a lot of effort and time into actually deleting the data. I wanted this to show up kind of in our overall cost savings, but it turns out that the timing wasn't right for that. So on the right there, you can see that red line going down. That's the deletion of the test data, but the green line just above it, going up, that's the ingest of a very large video digitization project. So equally canceling each other out. But if we hadn't deleted that data, we would have had an even bigger spike of growth. So it didn't solve the problem, but it bought us time. So it was worth doing. So this gets into more of the larger changes that we're doing, the ones that needed investment. And so the big project we're doing this year is migrating to hyperscale cloud. Besides the storage costs, we are kind of on the hot seat because we have a core part of our storage infrastructure is going out of extended support in June 2026, so this year. So it's a lot of risk for us to continue to keep using that storage beyond that point. And there's also a cloud-first policy in place. We went through a procurement process and ended up selecting Microsoft New Zealand North for our destination platform. The original scope was just the preservation storage. That was the biggest bulk, costing us the most. But then we found out through testing that there was going to be too much of a latency, unacceptable latency, if the applications were left close to Wellington and the Trentham data center, and the preservation content that it accesses was up in Auckland. So what we ended up doing is deciding those applications are also going up to Auckland. So it's an expanded scope. This is a very complex project. I think we have 7 different vendors we're working on with this project, and it has to be done this calendar year. So it's a very complex project, but we know it's necessary. These are the areas that we think we're going to benefit from this move. So the first is the availability, increased availability. So because there's 3 different regional data centers, they're in where we're moving to. If one goes down, the others just transparently, is that the right word? Come up. We don't need to do anything. They will just automatically come up. Also, we'll be using infrastructure as code deployment, which is new to us. So that's something that we'll be using. The architecture will be more flexible on the application level. So we'll have, it'll be easier for our team to be able to stand up and deploy things themselves. And our developers are very happy because they'll have access to the cloud native tools. We think it will be a lower storage cost, at least in a spreadsheet, but we need to validate that. These are the areas where our preservation requirements start to diverge from the generic cloud infrastructure. I think I need to hurry up here, but so we'll be using a commercial enterprise migration tool, Comprise. I encourage you to look at that if you ever need to move lots of different types of data from different storage areas. We're also creating an independent fixity tool. Although the tools themselves there could check the fixity for us, we don't trust it. We want to verify it ourselves. And we're also adding a cultural ceremony requirements to mark the importance of moving this digital Tonga from one area to the next. We're also, because it's a completely different cost model for us, we're going to be adding in dashboards and guardrails to try to do something about the costs for egress. And we're working on a solution to make sure that the content can't change unintentionally and that we're able to mitigate a regional disaster. I already talked about the AI bot problem. Basically, the summary here is that we haven't solved it. We've tried the Imperva web application firewall, and it hasn't been that effective for us. So we're still seeking solutions. These are the areas where we're experimenting with AI. We found it mostly useful to improve discovery and access. So we did a project that identified potentially harmful metadata in our catalogs, and then the subject experts were able to go in and validate that. Similarly, we're doing the same for our web archive content. We're looking for unsafe material in there. I think material that would meet the legal objectionable definitions so that we can make this collection more accessible. Images are kind of the low-hanging fruit there, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. We are also experimenting with semantic search and doing some training, creating Jupyter notebooks to help other institutions experiment with their collections as data as well. Credits go to Icha and Ben on my team for all of this work. I think I'm running out of time, but I wanted to quickly just show you some screenshots of this semantic search interface using our web archive data, because keyword search is just not effective for this type of data in kind of bringing out the context of the websites. So they created this toolkit that first pre-processed the content, created a vector store, and then the search UI. The content used for this prototype was 43 snapshots of the COVID-19 website, ranging from 2020 to 2023, focusing on just the HTML itself and filtering out the HTML tags, boilerplate, and duplicate content. There's a lot of duplicate content in there, which is shown in the orange bars there. So we were able to filter out things that didn't change across these snapshots of the website. And it kind of shows you the importance of pre-processing your content before you put it into something like this so that you can reduce the size of your index. We looked at 3 different toolkits for the vector store from the Llama Index framework and selected the Facebook AI similarity search, which I understand is pronounced FICE, although you would think it's face, but it's not. Okay, this is what the interface looks like. Doesn't show up as well on my screen here. But by default, it shows you 5 result sets, and the AI is turned off. If you turn the AI on, you get the choice of different models that you can choose from. We're trying to make this as transparent as we can. Oops, I should have said, in that one, I typed in what areas in New Zealand were most affected by COVID. Because I had AI turned on, I get back this response, summarizing for me what it looked like in New Zealand. And then the results set are the archived websites that the information came from. If you click on the first link, you get back this website from 2020. Hope it doesn't bring back bad memories for anyone. And these are just kind of sample questions showing that we're trying to cater to all different kinds of users, including kids, eventually. Here's my takeaways. I do think it's important to start with the small tactical changes. I heard this from a previous speaker as well. They're worth doing. It's not just those large things. The smaller ones can buy you time and actually pay for the bigger ones. No platform solves stewardship by itself. You can't purchase a product to get preservation. It requires ongoing intervention. And then lastly, AI is both a pressure on memory institutions and it's a tool that can be useful for our collections. So thank you for listening. I hope that there was something here you could relate to in your own context.
Thank you very much. Is there we have time for a quick question before closing the conference. Is there anyone who has a burning question in the audience? Yes.
You were able to identify bots after they got through. Have you got mechanisms to sort of identify them as quickly as possible and block
It's a manual thing. It's very interesting too. If you look at the, so that was from the Google Analytics. We can also look at the dashboards from the Imperva firewall and see the activity going on. And as a human manually looking at the requests, you can tell which ones are not legit. But because of the challenges that the firewall is putting forth, those get through. And they're getting very, very sneaky. So they are disguising themselves as New Zealand based now, and they're just passing every test, even CAPTCHAs. So it's a really difficult problem.
Time for another quick question? Yeah.
You mentioned this provider of books is international.
Yes.
Is there a collegial response that's being built up?
There's a lot of conversation. I kind of fast-forwarded through the slide, but there's a series there from eResearch. I don't know if you've heard of that organization. I think it's called Solutions Showcase or something, and they have a series of institutions trying to show what they're doing, and there's one more left in the series, which is going to be from the Internet Archive and I think the Bodleian Library in the UK, and it's going to be 4 in the morning our time, but I'm still going to watch it. but yeah, there's a lot of conversations on news lists, in Slack, just people trying to figure it out.
Nothing political.
Political? I don't think it's a priority, really, to tell you the truth. I think they have their eyes are on other things, probably that are, yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to thank again Andrea, and we have a gift for
Oh,
you.
nice.
As an invited speaker.
Thank you.
I guess it's my turn to close the conference.
Thanks, man. Thank you, Maxine, for keeping to time. That's wonderful. Thank you for a wonderful talk. All right, I will not be too long. I will get over here by the this thing. So we're done, which is really lucky because my brain's quite full. It's actually really full, and this is slightly self-congratulatory because I'm on the program committee, but this has been a really good few days. We have had some amazing talks, right from our keynotes and our invited talks, through our regular submissions and our lightning talks. So it's been a really impressive program. I want to thank everyone for your contributions, whether you were giving a talk or whether you were in the audience. Obviously, we can't have a conference without that participation, so thank you so much for coming along. As a reward, we have something for you. It's a survey. It's in your inbox right now, I think. I haven't checked. So please fill it out because the feedback you give us really helps us with planning for future events. We'll get to future events in a minute. Firstly, some thank yous. Firstly, thank you to Ngāti Whātua as mana whenua for hosting us, and University of Auckland for generously allowing us to use the space here in the Faculty of Medical and Health Sciences. Another shout out to our sponsors. So gold sponsors, thank you, Sempre, Digital Science, Xenon and NVIDIA. Love the lunches. Silver sponsors, CDC Do It Now, ASI Solutions and Team Cloud. Our bronze sponsors, Nokia and DDN. And our Women in HPC breakfast sponsors, Gigabyte and Xenon. Not to forget, our coffee cart sponsor, Datacom, and I know you all appreciated the coffee cart. Again, we couldn't make this event happen without our sponsors. We couldn't have the registration set at the level we have without our sponsors. So thank you for engaging with them. Your conversations that you have with them are a really valuable part of this event and our community. George and I just spent some time, actually in the last session, we started at lunchtime though, going around all the sponsors and just having a chat and getting some feedback from them, and they're all really happy campers. So I don't know if there are any in the room. I think they all packed up and left. They were exhausted. They said it's been really good. They've engaged really well with you. They've had some great connections, great conversations. They've made good connections. So from their perspective, it's been a really valuable experience. So thank you for engaging with them. And I think everyone we talked to said they'll see us next year. So that's great news because that means we can have a conference. All right, I want to thank the organising program committee members again. You guys were amazing. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, so thank you so much for everything you put in there. I want to thank University of Auckland Event Services. The whole team have been fantastic, so thank you for that. Our unsung heroes, the AV team, who actually aren't here at the moment. That's one! Give us a wave! This is, yay! This is the point where they usually turn out the lights and cut the mic. So thank you for not doing that. Well, I think we've actually been remarkably smooth with AV. So thank you for your help and patience. That's a great achievement. So for you guys, Professor Simon Holdaway encouraged us to challenge, to connect, and I think that we've managed to do that. So thank you all for your amazing contributions and the amazing waiata that we experienced. Tessa's just walked in. She just missed me thanking her and her team, so I'm going to say it again. Tessa, thank you so much for all the work you've done. And I've told them about the survey. It's okay. Right, next year. So normally we announce where we're going to be next year. We're going to be in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We don't know. Sorry. We haven't managed to pin down exactly where we're going to be, but we are going to be having it somewhere. Wherever... probably won't be Auckland. Jeez, it might be, who knows. But wherever we are, we hope you'll be there too. This is a meeting about eResearch. It's about the infrastructure, it's about the support, it's about the training, it's about the research, but it's also about our community. And this is a very cool community. I'm really happy to be a part of this community as we go through some particularly trying times in our science sector. So thank you for being so supportive and welcoming of everyone. People who have attended for the first time, including some of our international speakers, have said this is an amazing community, this is an amazing conference. So well done you guys on making it feel so welcoming. I am going to leave you with a whakatauki that Helen Wihongi shared this morning during the Rakiora talk, and because obviously it pretty much sums up this community idea. So, hea te mea, nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is the people, it is the people, it is the people. Thank you all so much for coming, safe travels, and I look forward to seeing you all next year somewhere at this meeting. Ngā mihi nui.